going to talk a little bit about the importance of going global in travel. I was in London last week as well at an expo in the London Olympia, and one thing struck me with one of the presentations, nothing to do with localization, nothing to do with travel, as it happens. One phrase struck me of huge importance, which was, if you go online, you are global from day one. Okay, so it's your responsibility then to decide what you need and want to do with that. This presents a huge opportunity for the travel industry, of course. The world of global travel is changing at an absolutely rapid pace. Travelers are becoming, much more discerning about their holiday options, and spoiled for choice when it comes to researching their next holiday or their next business trip. Their expectations are very high when it comes to understandable and authentic content. There are so many digital channels, and we spoke an awful lot about this over lunch and just before lunch as well. There's lots of change, lots of new innovation. There's different technologies emerging, and together with shifts in traveller behaviour and preferences, never has it been so important to go global in this travel industry. And here are just a few of the key trends that we're seeing and that we're having conversations with our customers about in relation to travel and in relation to how things are moving. So I'm sure you've seen these virtual assistants before. I mean, we're fast moving to a keyboardless world where the global traveller will be able to converse with devices without having to stop and type. We need to consider the impact emerging technologies such as AI and IoT are going to have on the industry. And from conversation I'm having at lunchtime, the question is, will they? And if so, when will things like AI have an impact on the travel industry? Very important, I guess, in our business is the emergence of natural language processing and voice technology, and how that's changing the way in which we look at global content and how we approach things like search engine optimization and how we serve up content to the global traveller on the go, which I think is very important. Again, it's just some more of these virtual assistants. I don't know if any of you have used any of the new technology, the Amazon Alexa or anything like that. You'll understand that if you're trying to use it in a different country or in a different language, you're going to talk to it differently than if you were to type into Google. So that's the balance, that's the silver bullet. How do we do that efficiently on both channels? Again, I was at another tech conference, and in the words of Kieran Flanagan, he's the VP of Marketing for HubSpot, he said something that's stayed with me for the last 12 months, which is the key to customer engagement is to target your dream customer on the platforms where they live. So what are the emerging platforms? Are they different in every country? Think of Facebook in China, for example. There is no Facebook in China. And how much, and what kind of effort do you need to make to reach these people in the global market? And is it a case of the old-fashioned translation and localization of content on these different platforms? Do you need to create content from scratch? Do you need to target different micro demographics on these particular channels and platforms? This is all of the conversations that we are having, and it's meant a huge change in the way in which we approach content on a global scale. And then, of course, we have the hyper-connected world. Everyone on mobile phones, connected everywhere you go. It's a world of user-generated content and reviews, where news of products and services and ideas spread like wildfire globally, something I like to call the digital grapevine. No sooner is it gone online than it's global, so make sure your message is good. And how do you manage the speed at which your message goes global? How do you make sure you get there first in all markets, and that somebody else doesn't beat you to it? I had a case, we were doing a webinar the other week, and the person I was interviewing, he's from a drinks company, and he gave the example of a particular brand of drinks that was very successful first to market in one particular, in the first 5 markets they entered. But by the time they got to entering the next 5 markets, there were already 5 drinks of that type in the country already, because word had got out. So again, you just need to be careful. If you want to get there first, decide where you want to go, and decide what the content needs to be. So it's all very important in this, as I say, in this hyper-connected world. Again, I'm sure you've heard this many, many times about the experiential traveller, about the experience. It's all about the experience now, how to engage people. It's about connecting to the history, the people, and the culture of the destination. The discerning traveller will search for the new, the local, and the authentic. And what do we need to do to develop engaging and immersive content on a global scale? Is it video? Is it blogging? Is it user-generated content? Again, these are all emerging types of contents. These are all things that are keeping possibly some people here in the room awake at night, wondering how are we going to deal with this in 66 countries? Will we do it on all 66 countries? Should we approach it differently? Which platforms are we going to use, etc.? So it's, I think, as Tom said over lunch, it's interesting, it's entertaining, but I've an idea that might have been a euphemism, but there you go. And then I'm going to coin a phrase from Rafat Ali from Skift. He came up with this phrase, and you can't see it very well there, perm-anxiety, okay? Perm-anxiety, to quote Rafat Ali, is a state of near constant state of anxiety that exists around the world. Travellers endure a barrage of worries about terrorism, security, Trumpism, technology, the adverse role of technology, the widening economic gap, culture wars, etc., etc. Okay. So how do we allay the fears of the traveller? How do we ensure, and what efforts do we need to make to provide the traveller with practical information in real time as world events unfold? And that's just one area of content that's important in the context of this perm anxiety. And then there's the question of China. It comes up time and time again, and not just for travel. It's happening with all of our customers in every vertical. They're big buyers, they're big spenders, they have a big population. Less than 10% of the Chinese population have a passport, and that compares with just under 50% of the American population who have passports. And yet the Chinese spend more on foreign travel than their American counterparts. China is the biggest travelling population in the world. So the question is, what is the travel industry doing about it? We were coming through Heathrow yesterday, and I took a very blurry photograph of at the information while we were trying to negotiate the tube stops. And they had a complete independent stand for the Chinese traveller with QR codes and all of that kind of thing. So it is a reality, and people are starting to cater for the Chinese market in their destinations. And the question is, how can we do that more? How can we get them to spend their money with our companies, etc., and the way you want them? And then looking towards the future, will that trend continue? Will travel behaviour of the Chinese stay the same over the years, or will it become more westernized, I guess, as they start travelling more? And again, do we need to change the way in which we present content to facilitate that, and how far away are we from those times? I don't think I need to talk about mobile too much anymore. I spoke about the global traveller on the go, the keyboardless world. It speaks for itself. And finally, just before I wrap up, I wanted to end on a good news story. So this is the story about two friends, Louis Cole and JP Schultz, who are currently circumnavigating the world in a light aircraft, a 4-man light aircraft, hitting 22 countries in 90 days. It's currently in progress, and they're seeking to embrace and celebrate the richness and the diversity of countries and cultures, while celebrating things that we share that make us human. This will become a documentary film, and it intends to break down borders, which is great, illustrate how small the world really is, and encourage others to travel and explore the world. This year at Vistatec, as Tom has said, we're celebrating 20 years in working in over 150 languages across many cultures and many countries, and we're delighted to be in a position to play a small part in helping this dream, this trip become a reality for these two friends, together with companies like YouTube and GoPro.